You won't be alone. You'll have Fearless's head to keep you company.
This is a scene that I chose at random from Netflix's Cowboy Bebop. And this is not good writing. But unfortunately, it is the most common kind of writing. Telling your audience everything, leaving the audience watching nothing to notice, to interpret, or really anything to do with. There is a basic rule of writing that is very simple, but also difficult to accomplish. Don't insult your audience. This is something that some shows, Netflix's Cowboy Bebop, fail miserably to do. You see, this is supposed to be a villain. This is an actual villain. Fortiche Studios, when they were making Arcane, knew what it takes to make a show memorable. Its characters. Not only just their dialogue and their character developments, but how they have their interactions with each other, their subtle body language, those little cues that our brains interpret and are, a little bit more believable than just corny dialogue. And, they do a really good job of not insulting their audience. To illustrate this point fully, I want to share with you two scenes from Arcane that really just stand out to me. First off, this scene is just chef's kiss of how to do visual storytelling. Keep in mind, before this fight, we haven't really seen Echo and Jinx together and their interactions with each other, but they're able to tie a whole backstory and emotion to this fight while the fight is happening. How did they even manage to do that? Moving beyond this scene, I do want to talk about this scene as well, in which Finn confronts Savika. A couple things to note before we look at this scene, and a couple things to remember before we do. Number one, we have seen that Savika has jumped ship before, leaving Vander's side to join with Silco. So, as an audience, we wouldn't be unreasonable to assume that she would do so again. Number two, she has actively gone against Silco's reasoning and logic when it comes to the decisions revolving around Jinx. Finn comes to Savika with a proposal. A fairly typical trope in shows where a lower mobster wants to overthrow the order and take control. And this scene could have been extremely forgettable and just bleh. If not for a few subtle storytelling choices using visual storytelling that again are just... Finn starts out by acting all confident and making a play at Savika using recent events, saying that Silco is just simply an old man and that he's slipping, that he isn't fit to lead anymore. When this clearly doesn't work, while he's an idiot, he's still smart enough to change tracks and start using the Jinx angle and playing to Savika's emotions. And seemingly, this works. She stops to think about what he's saying, and when her cigar dies out, he offers her a relight using his lighter. She pauses and then accepts the gesture, telling the audience subtly that she is accepting the proposal. Oh, and all of this character development and tension and back and forth happens in about 1 minute and 10 seconds. Now later we see that this is actually a double cross, but I feel like when I rewatched this scene, just from her body language, that she was seriously considering offing the both of them at once in this scene. Because Savika's only true loyalty is to the ideal of the Nation of Zon. And for a brief moment in this scene, you can actually see a visual struggle with her decision of how best to achieve that goal of the Nation of Zon. Compare that to... Is this a fair comparison? Yeah, not really. But both came out at the same time on the same streaming platform and should have had the same tone. So I thought it was worthwhile to compare the two. Arcane masters nonverbal dialogue. The way that Victor goes from cane to crutch after the time skip to denote his health declining. Silco's defeated mannerisms as he's talking to Vander's statue, saying way more than you could ever write verbally and it be believable. And another example that I just really want to quickly mention, Silco embracing Jinx with a genuine embrace when he first meets her was so shocking to me, and I didn't know what he was doing, and I didn't know if it was this puppet ploy thing. But then we see Silco falling in the water the same way that Jinx was falling as she was falling away from the explosion, and that ties their parallel together. And then we get even more of a backstory between Silco feeling betrayed and that tying into Jinx feeling like she's being betrayed by her sister. And it just adds this weight and gravity to their story, because you can clearly tell that even from the beginning, Silco cares about Jinx, but he doesn't understand how to do that. And holy crap, I'm going on a whole rant. I need to stop. Another example is Silco's threatening aura in this scene, as his posture and delivery of his lines and just the weight of what he's saying as literal death walks behind him, and he still manages to twist the moment to his advantage. This is a true villain, not whatever the hell this is. In the spirit of fairness, maybe Vicious in the anime is a weak villain and they were just being respectful to the source material. Oh wait! Nope! He's a brutal edgelord that is just so much fun to watch and has this threatening aura about him, and he just seems like he's about ready to kill everybody around him. But hey, why have all of this subtlety when you can have this?
How many times did you fuck Fearless? How many?
Right, guys? In all fairness to Cowboy Bebop, its main downfall is the Vicious and the Syndicate side of it. The scenes in which you have Spike interacting with Jet or interacting with Faye are actually a lot of fun, and the show overall isn't terrible. It's just kind of mediocre, but it is sad because it could have been so much better. Again, these segments are just... oh, they make my insides curl and die. Arcane's mastery in visual storytelling happens in more scenes and moments that I can cover in a single video. Another example, the whole interaction between Victor and Jace as they use the camera to show what the characters are thinking, i.e., Victor says you have to destroy it, and the camera focuses on the hammer, and Jace says, I know. Then it cuts back to Victor, and he looks at him and he says, no, the hex core. Just so much good writing and storytelling in just 5 seconds that, again, doesn't insult your audience, because your audience understands what you're saying without useless, pointless dialogue that just makes your skin crawl.
I am gonna hurt you, Julia. In ways that haven't been invented yet.
I really like this show, okay? I truly believe that this show was one of the best pieces of fiction we have gotten in the past recent memory. I cannot wait to talk more about this show and dissect even more scenes of this show. And if you guys want me to go more in depth with specific topics of the show, like I did with this video, please let me know. Or if you want me to focus more on different scenes and talking about different scenes and their parallels, I would love to do that as well. I just love talking about this show, and I get all riled up about it because, oh, it's so wonderful, even when I have to watch things that aren't wonderful to clarify things and compare it to. Visual storytelling is an art form that has been lost recently, and Arcane really recaptures that with the body language and the emotion that shows up on these characters' faces. We get to read that emotion and interpret not just what they're saying, but how they're saying it, as well as the things that they're not saying. They just did such a wonderful, masterful job of balancing all of these difficult things to manage, like making sure that the audience knows what's happening but not saying too much, making sure that the audience understands the gravity of the situation while not crossing the line and going into full corny territory. This show walks on a knife's edge on all points at all times, and just, I have to applaud Fortiche for doing just the amount of work and amazing work that they did. I love this show, and I love the fact that it doesn't insult its audience.